Disclaimer: any information listed here is allegedly about actions occurring throughout the United States. Will the Democratic Party pay off people in order to win the midterms? The Democratic Party pays off people for the midterms. They have been known for paying people to carry signs up to $100 an hour. They also had a lot to kill off 2 people by ICE agents, backed by some billionaires from China's payment plan. But former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi now claims Republicans are preparing to rig the 2026 midterm elections by hacking voting machines. Pelosi points to ongoing FBI activity involving ballots and election data in Puerto Rico, Georgia, and Arizona as her supposed justification. Corsi points out Democrats once said U.S. elections couldn't be rigged, then called 2020 the safest election in history, and are now back to warning of hacked machines under Trump. He explores where the Supreme Court may land on counting mail-in ballots after Election Day and tightening election integrity rules. Isn't it true that the Democratic Party already played that game anyway? It's true that the Democratic Party, if they win, they have been threatening to impeach the president. Dr. Jerome Corsi reacts to NATO's refusal to join the United States in reopening the Strait of Hormuz, despite massive U.S. defense spending in Europe. He notes Trump says he won't forget NATO's lack of help. And Marco Rubio openly questions why Americans are spending $1.5 trillion a year on NATO if allies refuse support when needed. Corsi highlights growing anger that U.S. taxpayers fund NATO bases, troops, and weapons while key European countries block overflight, logistics, and direct assistance in the Iran war. France is blocking U.S. operations, prompting Israel to say it will not sell advanced weapons to Paris, while they undermine Israel's and America's security needs. Spain has refused U.S. requests for airfields, planes, and support. And Trump is threatening to drop Spain from NATO and halt trade over its Iran stance. Italy is now signaling no use of Italian bases or airspace for U.S. operations against Iran, further exposing cracks in the NATO alliance. President Trump appears to be getting more practical help from Gulf nations than from NATO allies in Europe. Gulf nations are reportedly preparing to pour between $4 trillion and $8 trillion into the U.S. economy through investment, energy, and infrastructure deals. Corsi frames this Gulf money as a major shuffling of the board in global power, with energy-rich Arab partners stepping up while traditional European allies step back. Given his long history with Trump, Corsi weighs whether the conflict in Iran could escalate into a boots-on-the-ground operation. He discusses Trump's balancing act between using maximum pressure, special forces, and targeted strikes versus a full-scale ground invasion. The interview examines whether the Save America ACT or a strong executive order on voter ID could standardize identification for federal elections. Corsi discusses Republicans can keep the House and Senate in 2026 despite political chaos over Epstein documents, Israel, the Iran war, and the struggling economy. He breaks down what issues matter most to swing voters: border security, inflation, foreign policy, election integrity, and cultural battles. The conversation offers viewers a roadmap of Trump's strategy on NATO, Iran, Gulf investments, voter ID, and how Republicans can hold power in Congress. What the House actually does is nothing at all but collect big paychecks for themselves. Here are some of the down-low scoop updates from the DHS shutdown, as the Senate funding deal stalls over the latest offer from Democrats. Know how to make day 40 of failure 8 times, causing total chaos and delays for a 4-hour layover. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has no choice but to continue to blame Democrats for the shutdown. Because it's true, not false, what they're doing to the people of America. They'll ask for something, Leavitt said. We'll give them that concession, and then they say, oh wait, that's not enough. Actually, I believe that's why I stated earlier that the point is the cruelty. They want this chaos. Leavitt accused Democrats of wanting to distract from the success of our military overseas right now. Thune rejects Democrats' offer. Not even close. Thune poured cold water on Democrats' latest counteroffer to fund DHS and reform ICE. Telling reporters it's not even close to being real. Thune said there are 9 new demands from Democrats, including components that are non-starters. Democrats have stressed that requiring agents not to wear masks and to use judicial warrants is an essential part of a deal. However, according to Thune, the warrants and mask issues have never been on the table. This is another example of the Democrats not being serious. Well, he added, the Senate is expected to vote Thursday on the GOP proposal to fund the bulk of DHS, while withholding funds for ICE's enforcement and removal operations division. Schumer says Democrats sent Republicans a new counter. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer speaks on the Senate floor on Wednesday, March 25, 2026. He stated that the administration has implemented a number of Democratic-initiated changes, including replacing Kristi Noem at DHS and sending Tom Homan to oversee the ICE operation in Minnesota earlier this year. The administration has offered repeatedly numerous reforms to the way ICE does its business, and in some cases the Democrats didn't even respond, Thune said. The South Dakota Republicans said Democrats had indicated that the GOP proposal they ultimately offered could be acceptable to them ahead of the White House meeting on Monday. On the request to remove masks and require judicial warrants, Thune said those areas are very, very difficult to write policy about. But I think you've already seen changes happen with the new leadership at DHS with regard to both those policies. He stated that a number of additional policy modifications were presented to them, but rejected. I don't know how they will ever satisfy their crazy online political base, because that's what this is about, Thune said. Jeffries says GOP offer isn't close to what Democrats need in a deal. Jeffries, coming out of a meeting in Schumer's office, told reporters that the latest GOP offer isn't close to what Democrats need to see in a deal. Asked by reporters about some of the reforms that Democrats have been seeking, Jeffries said requirements to prohibit agents from wearing masks and on the use of judicial warrants are absolutely essential. The minority leader said he expected a counteroffer in the near future after the GOP offer was rejected by Senate Democrats. We want ICE to be compelled to conduct itself like every other police officer, every other law enforcement agency, every other cop in the country, Jeffries said. Jeffries indicated that lawmakers should stay in town until a deal can be reached. We need to resolve this issue, he said. We should resolve it this week. Thune says no decision, yet on canceling recess. Thune told reporters as the Senate convened that no decisions have been made yet on whether senators would stay in town if they're unable to reach a deal. I think it's awfully hard not to have the government funded if we're not here, Thune said. If a deal was reached, the majority leader stated that if senators left town, we'd certainly get everybody back to vote. Hopefully the next couple of days will be productive, he added. House Freedom Caucus chair says he won't support the Senate GOP's offer for the Republicans. I won't vote for it in the House, he said, adding that he expects it could garner enough support from Democrats to pass the lower chamber. Harris argued that the funding division strategy sets a negative precedent and called it very unusual. We have never done that, where we strip out one agency from within the agency, and actually only part of that agency within an agency, to not fund them, he said. Democrats meeting in Schumer's office. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and a group of Democrats are meeting in Schumer's office at the Capitol to find better ways not to pass the SAVE Act bill, which is passed for now. Here's the latest March, April 2026, on the SAVE Act, Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, Save America Act. Current status as of now. Passed the U.S. House Feb 2026 by a very narrow margin, 218-213. Now in the Senate, the debate began mid-March 2026. Not passed yet, and unlikely to pass in current form due to filibuster rules requiring 60 votes. Bottom lines. The bill is alive but stalled in the Senate. What the bill would do. Core provisions from current versions. Require proof of U.S. citizenship, passport, birth certificate, etc. to register to vote. Add or strengthen national voter ID requirements. Restrict or limit mail-in voting in some versions. Push states to remove suspected non-citizens from voter rolls. What's happening right now, politically? 1. Senate battle underway. Republicans pushed it forward with a 51-48 procedural vote, just to start debate. Democrats are unified against it and expected to block final passage. 2. Trump is pushing hard. It's reportedly a top legislative priority. He's pressuring Congress and tying it to other political fights. 3. High controversy supporters say. It protects elections and ensures that only citizens vote, critics say. It could block millions of eligible voters. Many Americans don't have easy access to the required documents' real-world impact. If passed, estimates suggest tens of millions could face new barriers to registering. Rural voters could face long travel distances. To verify documents in person could disproportionately affect lower-income Americans, younger voters, married women with name changes, minority communities' chances of becoming law. Most analysts. Low right now. Reason. Needs 60 votes in the Senate. Lacks bipartisan support. Similar versions have already failed before. Big picture, this bill is part of a larger national fight over voting laws. One side, election integrity, ID plus citizenship verification. Other side, voter access, prevent barriers to voting, even if it fails federally. Similar policies are being pushed in state legislatures, likely to be a major 2026 election issue.